Mere conservatism.
That's David Perry. I'm Cleve Walker, and this is Mere Conservatism. Now, David, you came in and you were pretty much kind of really excited about something the Trumpster did about a policy. And what's that about?
There's so much going on that this could be under the radar for a lot of people, but I think this is a huge deal.
Okay.
And what I mentioned to you is that this policy that Donald Trump has put into action based on, with an executive order, to me shows in a very incredible way that he gets it, which is not something that I thought I would ever say about Donald Trump. I thought that he was just kind of and maybe this policy is something that's been directed from the outside, I don't think so.
No.
I think he
doesn't do things just because somebody else gives it input.
What I'm talking about is the banning critical race theory education in federal agencies, and he's also doing it for contractors and things like that do business with the federal government.
And why is that important to you?
This is so important. This is what he says. He said this on Facebook. A few weeks ago, I banned efforts to indoctrinate government employees with divisive and harmful sex and race-based ideologies. Sex and race-based ideologies. Basically, critical race theory is the root of what we are seeing nowadays with the new anti-racism push and Black Lives Matter, wokeness, all that stuff. The idea is that all relationships are power-based, and that when outcomes are not equal, that means that the system is broken.
Right. Right.
And basically that's what this is. This is the critical race theory. The things that he's banning is banning things like being trained that all white people are inherently racist.
Right.
Because
these are actual
because of the
courses
power structure. Yes.
That they teach them.
Embrace your racism and white fragility and all these things that are going on. He's banning this from being taught to federal employees and contractors, government contractors and grantees, the military. And he says this is why I say he gets it. This is so important. He says Americans should be taught to take pride in our great country.
I love it. Yes, he does get it.
Yes. This is so important because this is literally the end of the country if this gets firm root. Well, it's because this is what's behind the whole movement to tear it down.
Exactly.
The police and everything.
That lays the stage for the justification for everything that BLM and groups like that are trying to get established to justify their effort to burn down the system and build up something totally new. I call totally Marxist.
And this kind of thing is cultural, and it's in education right now. And he is so right on saying the federal government isn't going to be involved in that. We're not going to okay it. And because why would we invest in something that is destroying us? It makes no sense whatsoever.
And give President Trump credit. I think other presidents might have realized this is not a good thing, but they were going to go along and get along. And he's not made from that.
Well, and also, I think that one thing that we have seen, and we kind of always knew this, but it has been really illustrated under the Trump presidency, that the bureaucracies don't necessarily go along with the president.
Right.
They don't just automatically fall in line under the president.
The CDC is even pushing back on this particular executive order to get rid of this. And so you're right. They have a
lot of agencies
mind of their own.
And this is so you would think that we elect the president, the head of the executive branch, and that the executive branch would fall in line under the person that we hired to do the job. But they don't. And there are a lot of agencies that are still trying to do these things. And by the way, another thing that they have done is they have made it possible for you and me, if we work for a company that wants to do these studies in federal or in critical race theory and whatever, and they want to teach me and you that all white people are racist and all that stuff, then we can actually file a lawsuit under the I just blanked on what
the point is you are allowed,
law it is.
You are allowed to file a lawsuit.
That you can now, because it's a hostile work environment, now you can you can use that law. That this is.
I didn't realize that.
This just happened, and he's using his power as president in the right way. I'm telling you.
So once again, you are impressed.
I'm
with
impressed.
President Trump in a way that you didn't think you would be.
And this is one that probably won't be talked about quite as much as a lot of the other things that are going on. But this one, I feel like, really shows that he understands what's at stake and what's going on in our country.
And that policy involves one of the first things we're talking about. That policy is behind the attitude that makes the situation in Kentucky even transcend even what should be just a local matter. A grand jury, of course, you've heard about it by now, announced that charges against one of the 3 Louisville officers involved in that fatal shooting of 26-year-old black woman Breonna Taylor was not charged, rather, with murder, but has been charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment in Taylor's death. And so now that's, of course, been the occasion for the more rioting. I refuse to call them protests. More rioting as a result of that. But here's the thing. We were all misled. I was at the beginning of this because I thought, oh, man, I hate that no-knock a warrant was a result of this woman's arrest. And yet, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, a young black man who I think has a real future in the GOP, he gave different details from the investigation.
Evidence shows that officers both knocked and announced their presence at the apartment. The officers' statements about their announcement are corroborated by an independent witness who was near in a proximity to apartment 4. In other words, the warrant was not served as a no-knock warrant.
And that's something that is important because the first thing that gets out, and the media ran with it, a no-knock warrant, they come in, they start shooting. And of course, later on, we found out that they were shot at first. Mm-hmm. That's something also that didn't come out, that they were actually responding to shots. And all that makes a pretty big difference when you're trying to parlay a murder charge, which is what they're supposedly rioting about because they felt a murder charge should be charged. And David is another example of why it's important to get behind what is behind all this race injustice stuff. It's a political agenda having nothing to do with innocent people being killed.
Yeah, so it changes everything because before, with Breonna Taylor specifically, I was somebody who would say, all right, you want to have a conversation about no-knock warrants? Mm-hmm. Let's do it because I'm not really a huge fan of those.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a police officer. I've been trained in that way, but I would love to talk to a police officer and have them explain to me how a no-knock warrant is not the most dangerous possible way you can do one of those things for both police officers and the people who are being served the warrant. I mean, it seems very dangerous. Anyway, apparently that's not.
It wasn't the case. We were told it was initially, but it wasn't.
I think I heard that they knocked. They announced they didn't get an answer, so they kicked in the door.
Yeah,
and then the shooting started.
Exactly.
And a police officer was hit, and there was some gunfire exchanged. Apparently, you said that one of the officers was charged with something. What did you say it was?
He was charged with, it was called
wanton endangerment.
Yes, wanton endangerment in her death, and
probably because he wasn't careful about firing his gun.
Yeah, because the bullets actually went into another apartment as a result of that. Okay, so that in other words, this was an endangerment of others who had nothing to do with the scene that they were in. So that's a legitimate thing. It's not murder, though. Okay.
This is one of those things where I feel like the death of Breonna Taylor is a terrible tragedy.
Yes, it is.
But murder, you can't really make that case because if anybody was guilty of manslaughter, it was the guy who shot at police, right?
Right.
Because the police were doing returning fire is a lawful thing. If somebody dies in the course of you doing something illegal, that could be manslaughter.
Dave, but I actually heard somebody said it wasn't because they could have held their fire until they found out what the situation was. I actually heard this.
Yeah, and this is the thing in these situations. You got to put yourself in the position of both parties, okay? Mm-hmm. Which is, by the way, one reason I don't like no-knock warrants because, Cleve, if somebody busts into my house unannounced, they're getting shot at.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I understand. I mean, it seems like a very dangerous thing because I don't know who, how am I supposed to know?
That's a great discussion for a different time, but this wasn't it.
But put yourself in the police officer's case. When you're being shot at and you're returning fire, the point of shooting your firearm is to neutralize the threat.
Right.
In those situations, it can be kind of difficult to ascertain when the threat is successfully neutralized, because you got a few people shooting. Do we know how many rounds were fired at the officers?
Right.
Maybe that has something to do with how many times they shot into the apartment. Anyway.
Find that out before you make some type of conclusion. But the conclusion was already made, and the mob, the people with all the violence, supposedly are doing this because they feel that the officers murdered this woman.
Well, and is it bad? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it murder? It's obviously not murder.
And we can't let mobs decide that.
Right.
This is the purpose of the justice system.
True.
So I'm so proud of the Attorney General in that case. Again, a young black man, Daniel Cameron, because he did not do what counterparts have done in other places, and that is immediately throw the book at the officers, announce that you're going to do it even before an investigation has even been completed. So that in itself is, but that critical race theory thing, that's what I'm trying to say. It sets the background where attitudes and snap judgments like this are.
Yeah, and by the way,
happen.
is there, there's any indication of any kind of racial motive from anybody?
No.
So race isn't really a part of this.
It is to them simply because the officers were white, and that's all that matters.
And
so
the victim
for them,
was black.
Yeah, it is a part. Wow. Well, anyway,
that's again, just to sum that up, that's a really I feel bad. I think it's terrible that Breonna Taylor died. Yeah. It is an absolute tragedy. Obviously, it's not murder.
No,
that's obvious,
and that's all we're saying. We're saying do the investigation. Don't run through the snap judgments. Don't allow this filter that they're trying to put on your eyes that any involvement of a shooting of a white officer and a black is this. And
the officer who's getting in trouble, well, that should be investigated, and if he did something wrong, he ought to. And they're going to investigate it,
but it's not murder. I wish by the time this broadcast is done, we will know for certain who Trump picked. Okay.
Right now, we're not quite sure.
We're not quite sure. The betting is on one person, but we don't know at this particular time. But anyway, Democrats are saying the stakes are tremendous in this election, and they vowed to do everything they can do to stop whoever Trump nominates for that seat on the Supreme Court. U.S. Senator Tom Tillis was on Fox's The Story with Martha McCallum, and he discussed the importance of going ahead and filling this seat.
I think the Supreme Court will play a role. The violence that we're seeing in the cities, the protesters who came to my house before sunrise yesterday in their Antifa garb, the American people are tired of all that. And if Joe Biden just takes that extra step of telling us who he would nominate, I think it'll be game, set, match.
Because he's saying that whereas Trump has put out all the list of the people he would nominate for the high court, Biden is not, and the reason being because he said he would be excoriated for having radicals that he wants to put on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's true. This is a really interesting thing. So when I found out that RGB had passed away, Cleve, I got momentarily kind of freaked out.
Really?
Because my first thought was, just what we need for this to get a little hotter.
Right, I hear you. Okay.
And because I've shared with you that I'm a little concerned about the temperature of the country. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I thought is this is just going to make it hotter, and this is not a good thing. And I still kind of feel that way. I do think that it's a good thing for Trump to get another pick on the Supreme Court. I do think that the Republicans should definitely do it. We could talk about the whole, hypocrisy and the double standard and the Merrick Garland and stuff like that. Just forget about that. Look, Trump is going to make a nomination. He absolutely should make a nomination. And because the Senate is controlled by Republicans, they're going to have a vote. Okay.
Well, yeah.
So, and I think they should. think they have a really good chance of getting somebody through. All right. Joe Biden is he's probably not as radical as his party, but he's weak.
Yeah.
He's not going to hold
anything
back.
his party wants him to be. That's
right.
what he'll be.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, he's long been a very left-leaning Democrat, a very liberal Democrat.
Yeah, but not to the extent he is
now. But, I mean, compared to what they are now, he's pretty moderate for them.
Right.
But he's not going to he's just a figurehead. He's not going to hold anything back. It's important for Trump to get this election in. I think that, frankly, what Mitt Romney had to say about this was really good.
Yeah,
that he pointed out that, hey, Democrats have gotten really used to having a left-leaning Supreme Court, and that's not written in the stars.
I was pleasantly surprised to hear him take that tack, by the way. And by the way, just throw my part in here, I believe it's important to get it done now because, like many others who said this before me, the Supreme Court may actually have to partake in the result of this election.
That's interesting.
There might be a ruling that has, and I hate to think that might happen, but there's a possibility. In which case, you want to have that person on the bench now.
And I think that is the calculus that Mitch McConnell and a lot of the Republicans are making. Mm-hmm. I had the thought, though, Cleve, that politically, one of the best things that could happen for Donald Trump is to not necessarily have the vote before the election, although that would probably be fine, but definitely have the hearings. Because think about the last time the Democrats were super duper unpopular.
Yes, when they attacked Kavanaugh.
During the Kavanaugh hearings, Democrats were at their lowest moment.
They were rabid.
Because they were ugly, they were nasty, it was uncalled for, everybody saw it, and they suffered in the polls.
It backfired.
It backfired on them. And so do you think that there's anything that's going to keep them from doing the same thing to Amy Coney Barrett?
And as a matter of fact, even if she were not the nominee, the other guy whose name escapes me now, who would be, a Cuban, she would still be attacked just as vehemently.
And so the reason I'm saying that is because it makes Democrats look bad. This actually hurts them. These hearings actually hurt them. So the hearings are politically good for Republicans. And by the way, Cleve, when it comes to Donald Trump getting elected, a good thing for him is for the focus to not be on him.
I hear you.
One reason that Trump's approval went up during the Kavanaugh hearings, Democrats' approval went down, is because people were looking at the Democrats. They weren't looking at Trump.
I got you.
Trump is not particularly popular. He puts a lot of people off with his attitudes.
I think he's not popular on a broad level. He's popular with his base and the people who support him, but on a broad level, okay.
So, but what I'm saying is he has qualities that can be off-putting to
polarizing
people.
Is the word.
Polarizing, okay. But if people aren't looking at him. If he is not the focus, he's going to do a lot better. That's why this could actually, even if they don't seat the nominee, if they just have the hearings, this could really help him because it takes all the wind out of the sails of the Democrats. They wanted a scandal a day. Every day they're going to have something else that they hit Trump with. Instead, we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court, hopefully. And I think that this really helps Trump in a lot of different ways.
I kind of understand where you're coming from. It's just that, unfortunately, I think the court is going to play a role in the election. I don't want it to. And in that case, we need to have that seat filled.
Well, and here's another thing. One of the groups, supposedly, that Donald Trump struggled with is suburban women.
Right.
That's kind of the narrative we've heard, especially since 2018 when the blue wave came and all that stuff. Suburban women went against the Republicans and Trump. Can you think of a more archetype suburban woman than Amy Coney Barrett?
No, she's a picture perfect image of that.
And a lot of suburban women probably are going. And the other woman you mentioned as well, which I also forgot her name, but. A lot of women are going to be able to see themselves in her, and they're going to see the way. I promise you, before you know it, they're going to say that Amy Coney Barrett was raping people.
They will say some outrageous thing.
They're going to say the same things. So that's going to be really interesting to see how they treat it. Is Mitch going to allow full hearings, or is it going to be super quick and brief? Are they just going to try to ram it through, or are they going to try to make political hay out of the hearings?
I don't know, but I know the Democrats are. But here's the deal: it's not only a barometer of the Democrats' hypocrisy as far as women are concerned, but Amy also brings to bear the importance of religion and the fact that many on the left believe that religion has no place in public policy, in public influence. And so for those of us who identify as faith people, many are going to see for the first time just how much this progressive movement hates people of faith. I mean, they hate us. I'll just tell you.
How often are you labeled by a liberal as a theocrat?
Well, they don't use that word, but you know what it is.
Very common for religious people to be labeled.
Keep your faith off my body.
Yeah, to be slammed as theocrats. the reason is because the left have a religion. The left, they're theocrats.
Oh, yes.
Their religion is government.
Yes, that's their God.
So when they think about religion and God, they can't imagine somebody believing in having a religion,
right,
and being able to do their job outside of without that influencing all their decisions as far as imposing their will on other people.
Yeah.
They are so comfortable with imposing their will on others. They just naturally do it. They have to do it.
Well,
they think that other people do that too. And there's people of all religious backgrounds on the court and in public life that don't do that. They're going to smear her as a theocrat, and it's because that's the way their brain works.
It already started, David. I mean, back when she was being confirmed for a judicial situation, Dianne Feinstein, the senator, actually said that. She said she was concerned about the dogma that Amy was apparently so deeply influenced by, And so, again, if only for folks, especially on our side, evangelicals who for some reason have trouble still supporting Trump, they need to see how the other side feels about people of faith and how hateful they are towards us. And if Amy's the nominee, as we expect her to be, that's going to come out loud and clear.
Yeah.
All right. This is kind of interesting right here. The Senate Homeland Security and Finance Committee this past Wednesday released an interim report on their joint investigation into Hunter Biden's role on the board of Ukrainian natural gas firm Burisma Holdings and his alleged extensive and complex financial transactions. Now, some of which are said to involve China. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin is chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. He was on Fox News' Hannity, and he laid it out this way.
According to our report on China, there exists a vast web of corporate connections and financial transactions between and among the Biden family and Chinese nationals. And some of these Chinese nationals have connections to the current communist government and past affiliations to the People's Liberation Army.
So this gets kind of deep on a number of levels. The Democrats, particularly Biden, have been very reluctant to take a stand against China, like President Trump has. And part of it might be because they are beholden to China, and China is financing and funding not just them, but a lot of folks who have their hands in the Chinese cookie jar, and that is some serious business, David.
The fortune cookie jar?
Yes.
So where is Hunter? And Joe has been asked about this kind of a couple of times here lately because this came out.
Yeah.
And so now Joe is being asked about it very gently by a few people. And Joe doesn't really answer the question and just says, let's talk about Trump's family. We should be talking. That's his response.
Yes.
Is let's not talk about my family. Let's talk about Trump's family. Because Joe knows that him winning this election, look, Joe is out there. He doesn't know a lot of stuff. But one thing that he is aware of and that he knows is that if any focus is put on him and his family, he loses.
Right.
Focus has to be on Trump. His only prayer is to redirect that question and say, don't look at my family, look at his family.
But I never, until this came out, I never thought there was a Chinese connection in it. But it makes all the sense in the world because, again, the Democrats want to talk about Russia, but I am persuaded that China is the greatest enemy on the planet, the greatest enemy of America and everybody, and they want total domination, no doubt about it. And if Biden's family and other Democrats, I think you'll find, are tied into this, are beholden to China in some financial way or influence, that's big news because then the tables are turned. They always try to connect Trump with Russia, and now Trump and our side can say, but you got a connection with the Red Dragon.
Yeah, okay. and the thing is, Biden has to. This might not be on Biden. He probably knows all about it. But look, it might not be on him. It might all be on Hunter. It might be all Hunter's problem. But Biden, he's going to have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like he can't just act like it's not happening. So, and that is very likely to take a toll on him.
It has to. Yeah, because,
But you want to see Joe Biden get upset? Ask him about Hunter. I'm telling you, this is an Achilles heel for him.
You're a dog-talking pony soldier for sure if you go in that direction.
Look, fat.
Hey, but here's the thing. The strategy with Biden, and it doesn't take a genius to see this, is to keep him out of sight and hidden away in the basement or someplace as much as possible. because they feel like that's the only way.
Yeah.
And they'll point to the polls to show that's been working, okay, because all the attention has been on Trump. And all Biden's got to do is stay put and let Kamala go out there and talk about the response to the coronavirus and all that kind of stuff, which is their main argument right now.
Yeah, and you're getting a lot of reports coming out of the Biden campaign that'll come out at like 9:30 in the morning, and they'll say Joe Biden is done for the day. It's basically what it says. Well, he's putting a cap on it for the he's done. He's not doing anything else today. Have a nice day, and it's 9:30 in the morning. It's just like, really, Joe?
Well, but every time he comes out, like the last time he did, what did he say? Something like, well, 150 million people have died as a result.
He says a lot of weird things.
And so my point
Trump,
is,
on the other hand, we discussed how Trump could stand to not have the focus on him too, and maybe he shouldn't be out as much as he is, but he's certainly drawing a contrast between himself and Joe Biden. He is campaigning hard. He did this against Hillary too.
Right.
Hillary was pretty withdrawn when it came to her campaign, and
she thought that was all that was needed,
and it cost her Wisconsin, it cost her Michigan, it cost her Pennsylvania, and Trump worked hard to get those states, and he won them.
I'm telling you, right now, I think Trump is leading in a way that the polls show the gap narrowing, but I believe he's leading now more than he was originally. And
could be.
And right now, their only hope is this mail balloting harvesting mess. This is serious business to me. And it's already showing signs of corruption in states where it's being used. So that's their only way right now. Hopefully that'll be stemmed as well.
Well, next week we'll be able to talk about a debate.
Yes.
Now see if Joe Biden's eye explodes during this one like it did that one time.
And see if the debate actually takes place. I'm still predicting, even at this late date, that it won't.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
David
it's supposed
Perry.
To be Tuesday night, right?
Right. Okay. David Perry. I'm Cleve Walker. We'll see. I'll be willing to eat a little crow on that. And this is Mere Conservatism. They can hear it again.
Find us on Apple Podcasts. Make sure that you subscribe to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. You can find us on YouTube, and you can find us on Facebook, all that good stuff.
Our Mere Conservatism Facebook page. In the meantime, have a fantastic day. November is getting closer.